The Redefined podcast is part of the Winmate Give podcast network.
All right, y'all, I met this dude a few years ago walking around in board shorts and a Savage tan, hanging out in Tulum, Mexico, like he was some sort of beach bum hipster from Missouri. So I met this guy and instantly I liked him, but I didn't understand him. As I've gotten to understand him, this man is built different, y'all. He's built different because he's done more dumb things than most of us. He's built different because he's found more success than most of us. He is ridiculously optimistic, devilishly handsome, and a good friend. My name's Eric Hatch with the Redefined podcast, and I am so excited to chat with my homeboy, my brother from another mother, David Dodge, out of St. Louis. I don't know what the kids call it, but I love your toasted ravioli in St. Louis. Mr. David Dodge, how are you, buddy?
Hey, buddy. I'm well. Thanks for having me, Eric. It's always a pleasure getting to connect with you, buddy.
Dude, we've been bros for probably 5 years now. We were in a group called Multipliers, which was a group of entrepreneurs, of guys who had a lot of responsibility in life, but maybe were lacking a little bit of community. Why in the world did you want to be in that group in the first place? Like how did somebody trick you into paying $24,000 a year to hang out with a bunch of guys?
That's a great question, man. That's a great question.
Because we all went looking for something, right?
Yeah. That's a good question. I had been in a couple different real estate communities in the past, or prior to the multipliers, similar price point, similar type of thing. However, I found that every time I would go to the meetings, I would leave with 37 pages of notes. I'm exaggerating, of course, but like so much stuff. I'd get home, I'd try to implement 33 pages of the 37, and then I'd find myself taking 5 steps back. And to me, like the main motivation was, you know what, let's go join a group of people and not try to come back with any notes at all and just learn a few takeaways. And really it was, also just about building relationships versus just trying to create a bunch of to-dos for myself. So I really, really enjoyed the group. And then, when you're in real estate specific groups, there's very, very, very little amount of small group time. It's usually big group time. And there's very little vulnerability unless you're in the hot seat, and I felt like the Multipliers was such a cool group. It's no more at this point, but when we had that going, because we did a lot of small group stuff, and there was just a ton of vulnerability. So it really wasn't just all about real estate. It was really just more about, like you said, community and life and, all that stuff in between.
Yeah, man. I think the reason why I was drawn to it is number one is I was looking for a group that I didn't have to lead. I just wanted to be a dude. I got to say, if you're listening to this right now and you're a leader and you're kind of always at the helm, I think there's a danger in that, man. If you're the person who's always in charge, and I was able to go and be led. Here's the funny thing is I'm in therapy right now. I think everybody should be in therapy, but I'm in therapy right now.
I am too.
And I'm talking to my therapist, and I'm talking through this story of this point of frustration that I'm having, and he's like, Eric, you're somebody that's hard to lead. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, no, I'm an incredible follower. And I come back to my office, to my coaching crew. They're like, how was therapy? And I'm like, well, it turns out I'm hard to lead. They're like, obviously you're hard to lead. I'm like, oh, I'm the only dumbass that didn't know that I was hard to lead. Go figure.
Yeah.
And I say that because in this group was like 30 or 40 guys that are really hard to lead because they're all used to being the leader. But everybody had this like permission to come in and to show their vulnerabilities. And there was, I think the first day or so was like an interesting tension battle. And then the next couple of days is like, okay, we're letting our guard down a little bit. And you and I have been able to let our guard down quite a bit with each other through some high highs and some low lows. And I want to talk, David, about the shitstorm you've created in your life a dozen times over. But in order to get there, I want to talk about the success that you've had, because you're a guy that is an influencer in a lot of spaces. You're someone that has hit some higher peaks than many people have. And so give us the highlight reel, give us the Wikipedia page version of David Dodge and the success that you've had before we unpack all that.
All right. Well, let me just first start off with, it always looks so much better from the outside, guys.
Yeah, it
I mean,
does.
when you're looking at anybody, right? Like, social media is the highlight reel. It's the best of the best. It's the big deals, and there's a lot of struggle in between, right? So I just want to emphasize that, like I don't necessarily look at myself as being super successful, although, a lot of outsiders probably do. In fact, I had one of my recent employees text me last night at like 10:30 at night. It was just like, man, you guys are famous. I just left this RIA club and like everybody like wants to talk to me because I work for you. And it's just like, wow, that's crazy. So,
Yeah.
but anyway, to get back to the point here and to answer your question, I started investing. I'm 39 right now. I started investing when I was 20. So I've been in real estate investing for 19 years, going on 20. The first 10 years was very passive, had different jobs in sales and marketing, a couple different little entrepreneurial businesses that I had started. But real estate at that point, that first 10 years was a passive thing where I was just basically buying a rental or two a year.
So I was going to ask, in those first 10 years when you had another gig, by the time you're 29 or 30, how many properties had you purchased?
12.
Okay.
I
That's a
owned
big
12.
deal.
Yeah, I hadn't flipped anything. I hadn't wholesaled anything. I wasn't an agent. I just became an agent earlier this year. It was all just, 20% down, buy a rental, get 80% bank financing. I didn't even have the 20%. For like the first 5 or 6, I borrowed that and I'd pay it back, and it took me 10 years to get to 12. Yeah. So then I think it was by the age of 30, um, I'd done some really stupid things, which we can get into, really stupid things, hanging out with the wrong crowd. And I was basically on house arrest for those stupid things. And I didn't want to go get another job. And I was like, I seen all these people online that like had made real estate their career and their full-time gig. And I was telling myself, well, shit, if I already have 12 properties, it took me 10 years to get to 12, but like, why not just go in full time at this? And in the last, 9.5 years, let's call it, I've flipped about 1,000. Well, I should say I've bought and sold about 1,000 houses since then. Roughly.
Holy crap.
I'm
That's so
probably
many.
rounding up. I'd say it's 950, but we're gonna go with 1,000. Sounds good.
I don't think anybody's on the sideline being like, it's only been 950, not
Yeah,
1,000.
it's only 968, guys. Let's be honest. So somewhere in that range, call it 1,000. 700 of those have probably been wholesale deals. 250 of those have probably been BRRRR deals, and so we've added rentals, we've hold them for a couple years and sell them. I've probably rehabbed 150 to 200 houses. Most of them have been rentals. But 20-30% of them have been flips. So we've done tons of wholesales, tons of flips, tons of rentals, tons of BRRRRs, a handful of creative deals. I just got my license back in February, so just, I don't know, 6-7 months ago. I'm not a huge fan of being an agent, but I just figured why not? I'm an investor at heart. My passion is rental properties and creating passive income and cash flow, which, if you're in the space already, interest rates are crushing cash flow right now. I still love rentals, even though we went from, 20 grand a month in passive income down to like 3, probably somewhere in that range. I mean, it's a big hit. I'm not here to bloat. I'm here to tell you all the truth.
Yeah.
But because of the fact that interest rates are higher, inflation's going along with it. So, my wealth on paper has actually increased quite substantially due to the fact that all the properties that we own have gone up in value. So as of today, I own just under 50 single family homes. I used to have about 100, but we've sold a ton of them off. Got about 50 of them. I own another 40 unit apartment complex that I'm rehabbing. I'm converting it from a motel that was about 70 units down to a 40 unit apartment complex. Then we have a handful of 2s and 4s, and we just bought a 24 unit storage facility. So I'm kind of dabbling a little bit in that space as well now. So 100 plus units altogether. We've scaled way back on wholesaling, and we're kind of pivoting more into doing more fix and flips and wholesaling just because of the market.
So David, in this, you have a podcast, you've written books, you coach a bunch of people, you have a ton of YouTube videos that are out there. Like, you're a guy that's not only mastering this space for yourself, but you're helping other people to get there, right?
I try to. Yeah, I like to give back. All the above, man. Books,
Yeah.
podcasts, YouTubes, you name it.
Here's the bizarre thing, and this is an interesting pivot. You're also unabashedly clear with the world of the mistakes you've made and the mess you're living in, which I think so many people are afraid to show the world because they think ain't nobody gonna follow me if they knew how destructive I've been, and if they knew my sin, if they knew the gross underside. And you have leaned into showcasing that, and I don't think it's cost you a thing. In fact, I think it's gained a bunch of stuff for you. I mean, is that an honest analysis? Would you agree that it's helped you more than it's hurt you?
Yeah, I mean, not so much with being public about it, but just going through it, I think has given me a sense of like, well, if I can do this, I can do that, and there's very few things that I'm scared to do at this point in my life, and I'm more than happy to open up with you today about, kind of what I've done and to get me to where I'm at and some of the stupid things I've done by all means. I don't hide it per se. I don't lead with it either though,
Yeah. Okay.
so.
Well, yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it's not your business card saying David Dodge dumbass, right?
Right, absolutely.
But
It could easily go on there though, Eric,
so I want to unpack David, the chaos that has been, but I want to give everybody an understanding of what David brings to the table. And I'm not talking about his acumen of real estate knowledge. We had a gathering at my lake place about a year and a half ago with a group of guys. And so we were all gathering on Thursday to get there. And David had some travel woes. Somehow your flights got delayed and you couldn't make it until Friday. Now, I don't know about you, but the fastest way to piss me off is to mess with my travel schedule, right? Every minute is valuable, and travel is already, especially with flying, is met with all these frustrating redundancies of like, okay, can I just get on a stupid plane and get to where I want to get to? And you missed your flights. I don't remember the reason why, but I'm texting you and I'm like, dude, I'm so sorry. And I'm trying to be empathetic with you. And like, I left my car at the airport for you. It's an hour out of Fargo. So when you get there, just come and drive. And you're like, oh, hey man, it's better than walking. Like imagine what people back in the day had to do when they
I
were
think I
riding
actually
horses and
said, well,
stuff.
on
And
a horse, it'd probably take me 2 weeks. So what's an extra 4 hours or something like that, right?
yeah, like what kind of crazy man is like cool with getting delayed? And he's like, well, I could be riding a horse. It could be worse. Like,
Right.
David, where does that beautiful optimism come from? Because most of the world does not see things through a lens like that. Most of the world is like me, and they're vehemently frustrated that they can't get this chance to get to where they want to get to on their schedule.
I love it, man. I love it. I think a lot of it just comes from, I lost both my parents at a pretty young age, right? I lost my mom when I was 9 and my dad when I was 18. So I basically went off to college, and I'm incredibly grateful that I was able to go off to college. And my grandparents, helped me with college. I paid for a good chunk of it, but they covered a good chunk as well. And I was incredibly grateful for that. And I was just kind of like, at 18, you're an adult, kind of, so I wasn't like a child by any means, but I was out on my own. And, I still had a family, of course, like grandparents and aunts and uncles and cousins and all that good stuff. But for the most part, I was out making decisions on my own. And, you know, um, you know, I'm like kind of a nerd when it comes to like educating myself and just trying to understand, what drives people and myself, and how to seek, freedom, and how to seek happiness. And I don't know, I just over and over and over and over in life, I've just kind of come to the conclusion that, happiness can be pretty easy if you're grateful for stuff, and if you just have a pessimistic point of view, even if you just win everything in life and just have super, super success, you can be miserable. And on the flip side is like you don't really have to be that great at anything or that successful. And you can be like extremely happy if you just, you know, take a deep breath and just be grateful for all the stuff you have. And I think one of the things that I learned kind of at a younger age is that like, and this may sound crazy, and that's okay. Um, but like, all of us growing up in America or just being Americans, like we're so skewed, man. Like we live in a bubble. we live in a freaking bubble, man. Like people in Africa don't have shoes, and like all over the world that are just they're starving. There's genocide going down. There's lack of education, lack of food, lack of housing, lack of clean water. Like we got all that stuff. So it's like, I don't know, like I've always just kind of like seen the big picture. And I guess, one of my skills, I guess you could say, is that I don't compare myself to the neighbor. I try to compare myself to the averages amongst the world. And if you do that and you're in America, for example, like guys, you're in the top 1 to 5%. Even if you were broke and in bankruptcy and getting ready to lose your house, you're still in the top 5% of the world, guys. So I don't know. To me, it's just like I've always had the ability to kind of look outside of the box and look down, from a really, really, really high perspective and just be grateful for all the little things. And your example of, man, that sucks having to get, missing flights and having that travel day screwed up. And it's like, yeah, it's not fun. I wasn't thrilled, but I didn't compare myself to everybody that got there on time. Instead, I compared myself to people in 1883 that had to ride a horse and buggy, man. And it's like, thank God I'm not on a horse and buggy, right? So if you have this perspective, and it can be taught, it can be learned, you don't really get depressed. I'm not a depressed person at all. Like I'm a really happy, energetic, lively person. And I think it's a lot of it just comes down to the ability to compare to, what you don't have or what everybody else, worldwide is dealing with compared to just what you and your neighbors are dealing with. Sorry if that was long-winded, but
no, dude, that's such a different way to look at the world. And that's how you're looking at it. And it's a brilliant thing. It's contagious too, by the way, David. Like you immediately call people to the carpet, whether you know it or not. When you're like, well, you could be riding a horse. I'm like, you mean my rich white guy complaints are not as valid as they maybe
my
should be?
300 horsepower truck, right? And it's like, no, I'm talking about one horse.
Uh-huh. I was complaining that my buddy couldn't make it to my $2 million second home. Like that's what was happening. Like that sounds pretty stupid.
It's not, it's
No,
not.
I mean, thanks for making me feel like a piece of garbage. This is great.
No.
No, like I mean that as the greatest of compliments is you're giving me a cause for pause. You're giving me a chance to look at this perspective of things and be like, you know what, dude? Yeah, maybe it isn't so bad. In 2 weeks time, over Christmas, I don't know when this is going to air. It'll be sometime in 2024. But over Christmas, my family and I are going to Thailand. And so awesome. We're going for 2 weeks, and my kids are 9 and 7, and so that of course is going to be an adventure in and of itself. But we're doing a week of vacation time, and then we're meeting Than, our buddy that runs a nonprofit called Unseen, which is unbelievable. Go to check out weareunseen.org, everybody. It's the greatest thing in the world. Than and his family are spending a month there, and we're going to spend a week doing mission work. And awesome. He and I were talking right before we got on this call, David, and he says, hey, by the way, as we're talking, he's like, okay, so we get a chance to take this orphanage of girls on an adventure day. We get to take them to the jungle, and they get to do this like swimming adventure. And he's like, and I'm wondering if you and your family would want to sponsor this, right? And I just want to give you perspective of if you take 40 young girls on an adventure to Disney World, or you take them to a water park or something like that, how much is that going to cost in the United States? And in Thailand, he's like, yeah, it's going to be like $300. I'm like, dude, send them on an adventure every day. Like that's like it's. And I'm bringing my kids on this trip because yes, we are excited about the vacation, but I want to give my kids perspective, bro.
It's the perspective. And that's really what I was, trying to convey earlier is the perspective. Like we did the multipliers. I don't know if you were on this or not. I honestly can't remember, but we went to Honduras.
I was not there.
We didn't make that trip. Okay. Yeah. We went down to Honduras and we did like a little mission trip. And I'm not a religious person, but it's still cool to just go and help and get that perspective. And and this is going to sound terrible. It's going to sound so terrible, but it's not. But like when I got back, a lot of people would ask like, hey, what was it like down there? And, the majority of the people living down there, they live in like a shed, and it's like a place that me or you would be like, man, I don't even know if I want that in my backyard. Like I'd probably tear it down and build something nicer just to park my lawnmower in the damn place. People are living in these homes and they barely have anything to eat or fresh water. And it's just like the perspective that you get. It's going to be amazing for you. It's going to be amazing for your kids. It's going to be amazing for these girls, man. Everyone's going to win. Everybody's going to win, right? But whenever you get back, it's going to give you a little bit more, and everybody more perspective, to just like look around and just be so grateful for all the stuff. Like it's so hard to be mad, upset, depressed, you name it, when you're just grateful.
Yeah.
And I know gratitude is something you can't just every day wake up and just be grateful. Like it's so much easier said than done. But like if you just start practicing a little bit of gratitude every day, it's gonna snowball. And before you know it, bad shit's gonna happen, and you're gonna just be like, well, could be worse because I still got this really nice piece of clothing on and these cool shoes and this iPhone in my pocket and some money in my bank. And it's like it's not that bad.
Yeah. But it's not lost on me, David. You said, listen, you lost one parent at 9 and another one at 18, and you were cursed with a gift of perspective.
I kind of was. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I lost my mom at 21. My dad was never in my life. So I was orphaned at 21. You were orphaned at 18. And, although I never want to wish that upon anyone, the lens that I get to view the world with and the lens that you get to view the world with, because we've gone through hardships, because shit happened to us, it's the most tremendous gift we've been given, dude.
It really is, man. It really is. And I've had friends that have had parents go through divorces that have taken that, at a young age, of course, teens, even early 20s. And they've taken that, 10 times harder than I'm sure you or I did, and it's all relative, to each particular person, but it's taught me a lot. And it's just like seeing somebody like, dealing with something that's not, in my opinion, not nearly as bad. I'd much rather have my parents be divorced and still here, right, than just not be here at all. And it's just like, I don't know, seeing that is just kind of like giving me another whole other lens even of perspective. Like it's all relative to everybody, and just again, it just circles back to just gratitude, man.
So I mean, did you have gratitude when your parents died, or did this come later on when you recognized the gift that it was? Because I sure as hell didn't.
Yeah, I don't think I did right away. I think it took me several years to kind of pick up on that, but I always knew that like I could choose if I wanted to be happy or not. My parents instilled that into me, regardless of what happens to you and how what happens and how it's all about how you handle it. If you wake up pissed off and mad and upset, then, you are going to be mad and pissed off and upset all day long. But if you wake up and you're like, you know what, it's a beautiful day outside. I've got a roof over my head and friends and family to support me, like you're going to have a great day. So it's all just about how you choose. Like you literally choose if you want to be happy or not, period, So it's like, I think they instilled that in me. And, when I lost them, I was just grateful that I had that gift from them. And then it just snowballed from there. And now it's like, I still have bad days. Everybody does, I still get upset and angry all the time at shit, but it's not long. It's not lived very long. If I get mad or upset about something, it's an hour or two. And then I'm just like, all right, well, move on. Let's go do something fun and productive and try to seek some happiness here because we choose it. If you want to choose to be depressed all day, you're going to freaking be depressed all day long. So you got to flip the script and, you get what you want. So want positive stuff, want happiness, want friends, and you're going to find those things,
1 sec, David. I don't know what happened with my camera. Okay.
No, you're good. No problem.
This dang thing.
All good. Take your time.
Let's see if we can get it back. I always have a backup cam. All right. It's not working. All right. It's okay. We'll roll with this one.
You look great, man.
Thanks, buddy. It's where I want. Okay. So, David, in and amongst this new perspective gaining time where you find yourself going through life's hardships, and it takes a while when major things happen to have the gratitude for it. Now you're finding that is a a shortened curve where it doesn't take you as long. Sometimes life happens to you, right? Parents die, you go through hardships that weren't caused by you. There's also the self-inflicted wounds.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some self-inflicted wounds that you've gone through in your life.
Man. Okay. Well, so, you know,
because I'd imagine an orphaned 18-year-old is going through so much emotional turmoil that maybe you're making a few mistakes here and there.
100%. You know, I went to school, and again, I was super grateful and am still to have that opportunity. But you know, of course, I didn't have any oversight. I didn't have any parental guidance at all, man. I was just drinking and smoking weed and just being an idiot. You know, I'm really surprised I didn't fail out, but I'm a nerd, like I said earlier. So I truly enjoy education, and I enjoyed school all the way up through the end of college. Even as a kid, I enjoyed it, but you know, just ended up hanging out with the wrong crowd, and you know, just to kind of, we don't have to get too deep on this, but you know, I started selling drugs, and I got my pilot's license to make it easier and less risky. And we started, you know, flying out to Colorado and to California to get these.
There's a difference between the guy selling weed on the street corner and the guy who is flying drugs
Yep, and I was
across,
that
right?
guy. I was that guy. You know, got my pilot's license to make that process a little less risky, and you
Mhm.
know, we kind of scaled it up to a point to where we were having a lot of fun. Let's just put it like that. And
Yeah.
then, you know, shit hits the fan, and it was a federal indictment case. It wasn't,
How old were you when this happened, David?
oh man, I mean, I'm guessing, I mean, it's going on 10 years at this point. So I
Yeah.
was, you know, I was probably 27, but then the whole process took about 2 years, you know? So I think whenever shit really hit the fan, it was like 26, 27. But then there was like 2 years of like not knowing if I was going to go to jail or not, you know, and I was charged with 2,600 kilos, which is like
That's a
5,000
lot.
plus pounds of weed. Um, it's a lot, you know, and it was a big group of us that, you know, got caught up in the mix. It wasn't just me. There was several people, 20-ish people.
did
And
did you feel invincible before this happened? Because like you don't start at a level like that. I mean, literally, you start small and it grows and grows and grows and grows and grows. Were you feeling more and more invincible as that was happening? Or did you feel like this could crumble underneath you at any time?
so that's a great question. And of course it started small. Just like, how do I get something free for myself, you know? And then it scaled up, of course, but you know, I kind of saw the writing on the wall when I was like 25, and I got away from all of the people that, you know, I had been basically hanging out with for the previous 5, 6, 7 years. And
So 18 to 25, good life choices, still surrounded by loved ones, people that were keeping you embraced, loved. Your tribe was your vibe. Is that accurate?
yeah, yeah, but my
Okay.
tribe was really more so my friends that were a bunch of idiots with me. I mean, I'm not pointing fingers. We were all doing dumb shit.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
for sure. And I just kind of saw the writing on the wall, like I can't keep doing this. Like it's been fun, and we've had made a lot of money, and you know, had a lot of fun, but um this, you know, this isn't sustainable, and I don't want to go to jail. I knew that was where it would end, because again, we had scaled it up to a point where we weren't just moving small amounts or doing, you know, small anything at that point. So I tried to get away from everybody, but I was so intertwined in the mix that whenever the people that I did get away from didn't stop, um, we were all just basically caught up in the same mess, you know. So, you know, to kind of sum it up, I didn't know if I was going to go to jail or not. Whenever shit hit the fan, I got lucky, and my sentence was 9 months house arrest, um, and then another 5 years supervised probation, and that was no fun, especially the house arrest.
David, what did you think of you at that time?
Oh, I mean, just nothing great. Failure, piece of shit. You know, I should probably be in jail. Thank God I'm not.
Was your self-worth pretty high before that?
Um, You know, that's a great question. I would say it was relatively high. You know, I wouldn't necessarily say it was like very high or pretty high, but it was relatively high. But I was smoking weed every day. So I was also just kind of numb to it. I didn't really think
Mm.
about my self-worth other than just the fact that I've done pretty well by, being able to do what I had done and not get caught up until then, and I saw the writing on the wall. So I got away from everybody and I was even kind of out of the game at that point, and but then whenever shit hit the fan, it was like, well, they got all this evidence against me and all this everything, and it's kind of hard to, even if it was 2 years old, it's kind of hard to act like that wasn't me or that I wasn't a part of that or I
Hmm.
hadn't lived with these people and, had been so intertwined in the mix. And, it just, it was to the point where it's like, hey, you're either gonna be a part of this. Um, well, I didn't have a choice. I was part of it, right? And
Hmm.
but again, I mean, the good part of it, and here's the thing, Eric, like it was one of the best things that ever happened to me at the end of the day, getting caught. Because it solidified you can't keep doing this, number one.
Yep.
Number two, it was such a wake-up call. Like, hey, you've kind of been on your own since you've been 18 and you've been doing this for almost 10 years at that point, 7, 8, 9 years, whatever, call it 8 or 9 years. That it's like, you need to quit effing around and you need to really make something in your life. And that's essentially when I went into real estate full time. It was just after that, basically right whenever I found out that I wasn't gonna end up in jail and that I had a 9-month house arrest sentence. It was either go get a job or start a business. And
Hmm.
I literally hired a real estate coach.
You
Just
had a propensity for risk. You
Oh
had a
yeah, and
propensity
I still
for
do.
being a self. Like, uh, I I've heard time and time again that people who have lived that life of making some of those destructive choices make some of the greatest entrepreneurs because they're living with that natural skinned thickness of a sort where things don't feel as scary because you're living in a world that's against the rules before that, right?
For the
And
most part,
entrepreneurs aren't against the rules, but they're against the grain.
they're against the grain. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I took a ton away from it. And people ask me sometimes, like, would you do it over again? And it's like, I don't know, maybe. Like, I had a lot of fun. And, like,
Yeah.
if things ended differently, I think my perspective would be much different.
Mhm.
If I ended up having to go to jail for any amount of time, I probably would say no, but, it definitely created a lot of, a wake up. I mean, the main thing was a wake up call. Hey, you
Yeah.
can't keep doing this. I got lucky that I didn't have to end up in jail. It gave me a ton of perspective. It gave me a ton of, I don't even know the right verbiage here, but like the ability to, take risks without having nervous breakdowns all the time. Like, you can throw a ton at me and I'm gonna be pretty good handling it all. I have my
Mhm.
days. Everybody does. Um, but it's just like if I can flip a pound of weed, I can flip 1,000 houses. Like, it's not that much different, really. Just a little bit more paperwork, and so just kind of the way I looked at
That's
it.
such a good headline. I'm not going to use it for this, but if I can flip a pound of weed, I can flip 1,000 houses. Like,
Right.
talk about a sales pitch right there.
You know, so,
Uh,
but like I said, I'm not embarrassed about it at this point, Eric. I don't typically lead with it. Happy to open up with you and your audience, about it. And I think it's created a lot of resilience. It's created a lot of perspective. It's created a lot of gratitude. I mean, really, it's just everything that's happened in my life up to this point has not chiseled away the ability to seek gratitude. It's helped build on it, and losing my parents at a young age, I think is kind of a start. Having friends, even though they weren't the best friends to keep me out of trouble, they kind of brought me into trouble, helped with it, and the lessons that we learned doing illegal shit helped with it. And getting caught and not going to jail helped with it. And then being able to turn it around. And, I've been clean from, selling drugs for 10 years.
mhm.
And I have zero desire to go back to that type of lifestyle. But, putting all that effort and energy and risk tolerance into, becoming an entrepreneur. And, like I'm not afraid to go talk to a seller and make them an offer on a home. Like I have zero fear of that. Because I mean, I've
Mhm.
done all this other stuff that is way more risky and has way more, negative side effects than somebody getting mad at me because I can't fulfill a contract. Okay.
So, so I wanna unpack this a little bit, David, because I'm fascinated. I've never lived in the drug world before, but I remember when I had to have my first conversation with a client or a potential client, right? And this is on the real estate side of things, and I was scared to death. I probably peed a little bit and was riddled with this anxiety of like, well, what if they don't like me, or what if I don't have any value? And were you in those same kind of emotions? If you can go back to that first time that you sold pot, was it that same kind of like nervous, like, what if I get caught? What if they don't
Every
like my
time.
price? What if they pull a knife on me? What, like all those things?
Every time. I mean, just having it around at the house if I'm sleeping there or driving it or knowing it's coming, knowing it's going, knowing somebody owes me money, knowing I know. I mean, every incident of it. There was never a time when I didn't have fear going through my body. I knew it was wrong and that it was illegal the whole time,
But I want to live in the emotion of it,
Okay.
not
Okay.
not in the illegal habit of it, because I actually think the emotions are uniquely paralleled. And
Okay.
I want to know how you made a choice to say, hey, this is hard, this is scary, but I'm going to keep doing this because I like the benefit that comes from it, right? That's the reason why it grew to be something so big. You grew an empire of a sense because you were staring risk you're staring at risk right in the face, and you were unafraid of continuing on.
It's
Or
not
am
that I
I
wasn't
just
unafraid. I want to, and I'm not
you were
arguing
afraid
with
the
you.
whole time?
I was afraid the entire time. It was the risk reward ratio was exponential. You know what I'm saying? Like I could literally make 3 phone calls and make 15 grand. And it's like we can do that now with real estate, but it's a little bit more complicated, takes a little bit more time, you know. And it's crazy, man. We're recording this end of 23. We're gonna maybe post this or publish this beginning of 24. Leads legal everywhere now. But 10 years ago, it wasn't. Like Colorado maybe was the only place in the whole country where you could get it. And that even then it wasn't recreational, it was medical, right? So I mean,
Yeah.
things have really, really changed. And for the record, I was never selling hardcore drugs ever. It was always just weed, right? Not that it matters,
Yeah.
but it does to me because I don't really look at myself as being like a bad person because of this. It was just a way to make good money. But again, back to your point.
You were ahead of the curve, man. You're
Just
just
ahead
getting
of the
there
curve
before
a
the
little
US.
bit,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. It's still illegal. It's still, to this day, it's still a federal illegal type of thing, right? But not trying to justify it. Getting back to your point of the emotion, there was no better risk versus reward play that I was aware of for a young 20-year-old kid, right? I mean, if I went and got a job making 70 grand a year at the time, that'd have been a good chunk of change. That equates to $35 an hour. And I could make $1,000 an hour and have to work 3 hours a month and make just as much money as slaving away at 60, 70 hours a week for the entire month. So the emotion behind it was just like, you know, people want what I can offer them. I'm
Yeah.
not begging anybody to it. I never had used weapons or there was zero violence
Yeah.
in the whole period of time. Zero. I was always dealing with people I knew, high school and college friends. It was never strangers. So it really wasn't that crazy. And everybody was winning. So it wasn't like I was like, I win, you lose. Like, no, like, oh, well,
Yeah.
let's make it to where everybody wins. Everybody wins at the whole time. The only time that we lost is when, we got in trouble, of course, and, was uncertain about my future and, had to then, of course, deal with the government, which I don't ever want to do that ever again. And that's why I'm not messing around anymore, but, yeah, the emotion again, I think
David, it's a
risk reward.
fascinating story for me. It's a fascinating story because you literally you've taken the exact same skill set that you had in your 20s, still scared the entire time, still intimidated, but you understand how you can find opportunities that pay the most, and it just requires you to have a gigantic set of balls.
For the most part.
perspective plus balls equals David Dodge, right? That's maybe that's
With a little
the
sprinkle of
moral of the
gratitude
story
on
here.
top. You got it.
But you've been able to look at a fear and intimidation and self-doubt and all of that. You've been able to look at that in the face, and now you've transacted almost 1,000 properties.
Yeah, I know. That's
You
pretty wild to look back on it like that too. And I
and
think that
but that's I led this off by saying you're built different. You're wired differently. I don't know if it's your wiring. I think it's how life happened to you, man. I think it's
yeah,
losing
I
your
agree.
parents at 9 and
Well, I
18.
think how life happening creates the wiring.
Mhm.
Like I'm a nerd, said it 3 or 4 times now, and one of the things I like to study a lot is the human biology and physiology. And one of the things I think is really fascinating, Eric, is your memory today is not the same memory you had 6 months ago because your brain has rewired itself from 6 months ago.
Mm.
So you think you remember something, but it's not really at all the memory that you created 6 months ago because you've rewired. So I'm agreeing with you when I say this, but like all of the incidences that have happened, all the experiences, the journey has helped wire me into the way that I am to where now it's natural. Like I'm very, very open to taking on risks because it's
Mhm.
just, I've always done that, or I've, done a lot of that, right? So on and so forth. So I
Mhm.
agree. I agree with what you're saying.
I mean, is risk your drug of choice?
At this point,
Mine
yeah,
is busyness. Busyness is my drug of choice.
I would say it is probably risk. I mean, I'm very busy too, and I'm actively trying to be less busy because busy doesn't necessarily equate to efficiency or effectiveness. They
Mhm.
don't mean the same thing at all. And in fact, one of my favorite books that I've read recently is called The Relentless Elimination of Hurry.
Mm.
And it's really good. I've listened to it like 3 times in like just the last 2 months. I might even start it
You
again today.
recommended that, and I've downloaded it. I haven't listened to it
Oh
yet because
man,
I've been in
it's
too much of a hurry to do so.
too much about you're too busy to do it, right?
Uh-huh.
And this book is all about just like, in a nutshell, it's about being in a hurry. It doesn't serve anybody.
Mm.
Like you're kind of not you, all of us. We're half-assing everything because we're always in a hurry. We're not really focusing and dedicating time and energy to it. Um, and you can take that how you want. Read the book, listen to it. I think anybody that reads that book will take away a
If I
lot.
listened to it on 1.7 speed, are you going to judge me? 'Cause that's
That's not the point.
but I'm going to. I hate to tell you. Yeah, it's one of those things. I had just caught. I was listening to the news, which is a fancy way to say I had TikTok playing, and I had this quote that somebody said, and it just hit me right between my eyeballs, and it says, "If busyness is your drug, rest will feel like stress."
Man, I hear that.
Yeah.
I hear that.
So,
Yeah.
so David, how do you rest right now? If you're a guy that has habitually been busy and risk taking, and you now have a thicker skin for it, a propensity for doing what many people haven't done, and living a big life and taking big risks and being scared the entire time. If you're built that way, how do you slow down and rest? Where do you find your peace?
Man, I love to take trips. Um, I love to take trips. I just got back from Utah 4 days ago. Was skiing with friends for a week. I'm leaving Sunday, so 2 days from now, to go to the Bahamas with my wife for a week. We're gonna get back and we'll be home for 2 weeks, and then we're gonna go to the British Virgin Islands and sail for a week. I'm gonna get back from that trip for maybe 10 days, and I'm going back out to Aspen for a week. I'm going to back to Utah into February. Got 5 or 6 vacations planned typically at any
Is that
given time.
rest for you, David?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm not completely unplugged,
Yeah.
but I don't spend, you know, 5, 6, 7 hours a day in front of my laptop, in front of Slack or texting or calling. I may still spend an hour or two, a day, catching up with my employees and my team and my
Mm-hmm.
business and seeing which fires, literal fires in houses are needing to be put out, right? But it is. I love it. I have I'm not going to say I'm great at this, Eric, but I have really made a big effort since I started, reading that book, the Relentless Elimination of Hurry, to do a couple things. Number one, I haven't watched the news in 75 days. I got a counter on my laptop that I'm looking at right now. And I just was like, you know what? There's a couple things that I think I can do that'll really benefit me. Number one is quit drinking and smoking. I'm 83 days today. I haven't
Awesome,
watched the
buddy.
news in 75 days. I haven't used the microwave in 65 days. That one's kind of stupid, but I'm usually using the microwave at 9 p.m.
Well, I mean, the microwave is a hurry thing.
It's a hurry thing. Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like put something on the stove and
Mhm.
or at night if I like want something like something dumb, ramen noodles or just some snack, it's 90% of the time going in the microwave. So I'm down like almost 20 pounds in 3 months just because of, not a lot of things, of course, but the main thing is just stop eating after 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
So it's like just, stuff like that. But, leaving my phone in the kitchen, don't bring it into the bedroom. So lots of little stuff, but to answer your question specifically, what does rest look like for me? It's just slowing down. We're all busy. We all have a million things going on. My phone's ringing right now, like yours probably rang 2 or 3 times during this episode as we speak, like it's just trying to just be a little bit more present. I think is a good way to sum it up. And my wife and I's relationship has gotten so much better over the last few months of we went on a date last night and I left my phone at home, which is like it's kind of a rare thing for anybody to do, even for me. But when we're walking out the door, she's like, don't you want that? And I was like, nope, I just want you. Let's go.
Whoa, is that why you have a hickey right now? I'm kidding.
Probably have 2 or 3, man.
Jeez Louise. It's the only reason to own a turtleneck.
Yeah, that's right. It's like these things aren't that difficult to do. It's just nobody wants to do them. Nobody wants to leave their phone at home. Nobody wants to not use the microwave or watch the news. Just, the microwave to me is just, it's not good food. I'm not putting carrots and apples in the microwave. So I'm eating more of that shit. The news is never like, oh, this dog was found, stray dog, and it's adopted. It's like there's a war and these kids just got killed. It's like, I don't want to see that shit. It's not going to make me any happier. So I'm eliminating that from my life. And I'm only a few days in, right? I'm not an expert at this. And then just constantly being unpresent. Like when I was skiing last week, my friends told me 10 times the first 2 days, oh, Dave's here, but he's not here because he's on his phone. And then the rest of the trip, I left my phone in my bag, unless it was like an hour or two in the evening where I would tell them, hey, I'm going to go work for an hour or call the wife or whatever. But the rest of the time, I wasn't listening to music or nothing. I just didn't carry it with me. So it's little things we can do to make ourselves better, more productive, less busy, happier, even more grateful for the present time. It's just we don't typically choose to do any of these things because they're not convenient, they're not fun, but it's like you don't have to make massive changes, in my opinion, to change who you are. You got to make a lot of little ones, a lot of them, but they're little.
That's really good.
David,
there was something that feels contradictory, but I actually think it's complementary that you said. You talked about how you're always trying to maintain perspective, meaning you're comparing yourself not with your neighbor, but with the rest of the world. I thought that was beautifully said. But then you said the last 3 months or so, you've stopped watching the news, which someone could listen to and say, well, how in the world are you going to have perspective on the world if you're not engaged with the world? And what I heard you say as a parallel in all this is that you're turning down the noise so you can focus on what's in front of you.
Absolutely.
Instead of being so widespread and distracted. You said, I'm going to be focused on this. It doesn't mean you're ignoring what's happening in the world. It means that you're concentrating on what's happening in front of you. Did I understand that correctly?
I'm ignoring the negative. That's really what I'm trying to, and really all of this comes down to one thing. It's just, how do I become more present? And being more present may not equate to less busy at all. But if I'm
less
not
hurry, less busy,
I'm just trying to be more present. And really, if you think about that, like Here's another example. My relationship with my wife is really good lately for a couple reasons. Number one, I'm not bringing my phone on dates. I'm not bringing it in the bedroom, but also in the evening, instead of turning on the TV and then just everyone's eyes just suck to the television, I'm like in the kitchen making dinner with her. And if the TV's on, I'd still be in the kitchen, but neither one of us would be talking to each other. We'd both just be looking at the war and freaking the Gaza Strip right now. We would just be so sucked into this programming. That's what television is. It's programming, right? So it's just like, again, it just comes down to just being more present. And, you, I think, know me pretty well. And like, I'm a pretty happy dude. And it's only making me happier, man. Just to be more present. And it shows people that you care. It's one thing to be listening to somebody and be watching television or listening to them, looking them in the eye. It's a whole different thing. Like you're actively listening, not just selectively listening.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I think that alone, has really, really, really helped. And, all entrepreneurs are going to have ups and downs, and a lot of entrepreneurs, even the successful ones, it's just a crazy thing, Eric. Have multiple divorces. I know a lot of people that are multi-millionaires, decamillionaires, and their kids hate them. And it's like, of course I want to be rich and successful and wealthy, but more important to me than the success is to be happy. And like, I don't know, maybe I'm just preaching, but I just feel like, happiness is the most
you're
important.
preaching, but here's what's so interesting is we talked about in the beginning that you were successful because of the the houses that you bought.
I was just looking at
it's
the
good
notes
water.
here.
We talked about in the beginning how you're successful because of the houses that you've bought and sold and the things that you've done and the investments that you've made. And here at the end of the episode, we're talking about how you're successful because of the perspective you have on life.
100%. So what did I used to think success was? This is some questions you guys had emailed me over, right? And I used to think success was buying 100 houses a year. And I did that 6 years in a row. 100 houses in a year. I thought that was awesome. It's super successful. But I was 30 pounds overweight. My wife and I got along, but we weren't really in love. I mean, that's the truth. Like, we loved each other, but we weren't really in love. And at this point, it's like, I don't want to buy 100 houses ever again. That's a curse. I'm good with 30.
Yeah.
But I want to go take trips with her and enjoy her and be present with her. And it's not just her, it's friends and family and acquaintances too, but mostly her. Mostly her,
David, I'm really proud of you, man. I don't know if that means much just coming from a weird dude in Fargo, but
it means a ton.
I'm really proud of you for the growth you have and the inspiration you are. You're somebody I really look up to, and I'm grateful to call you a friend.
Likewise, Eric. I love you, brother. You're an awesome dude, and
guys, welcome to a bromance. If you're listening, there's a bromance a brewing.
That's right.
I get to be Big Spoon. It's going to be wonderful. You need to do yourself a favor and go and connect with David Dodge, not just on the Redefine podcast here, but listen to his podcast, check out his YouTube videos, learn from him and what he's doing. This guy is a superstar, and I'm proud to have him in my life. Folks, that's it for today's episode of the Redefine podcast. What I need you to do is I need you to go and smash that subscribe button so you can keep hearing people like David figure out what in the world success is. And we got to see his journey. So thank you, David. Thanks to all of you. And we will catch you next time on the Flippity Flip. God bless.